Welcome everybody to MogTalk 174. Today is July 27th, 2019. If you haven't seen MogTalk before, it's a show based around a Final Fantasy 14 community discussing everything from Savage Raiding to Chocobo Racing. And before we get too far into the show, let me make sure you guys know who we have on. I'm going to go clockwise here, so we're going to start with Mr. Ethys. Ethys, how you doing, buddy?
You're such a prick.
I'm sorry, man. In the intro, look. I was like, I would get a kill video of Moose, but he doesn't stream, so I don't have. I mean, I could have probably looked into the void and found something, I'm sure, but and I mean, I would have gotten a video of you hugging Koji, but I don't got one.
I was doing so well on White Mage, all right?
Okay.
I was really proud of myself. I was like, damn, I'm actually doing it. And the one time I died. Oh.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Tell everybody who you are.
I'm Ethys.
Okay.
We got another guest as well.
Okay. Moose, could you introduce yourself?
Hey, what's going on? And Ethys yelled at me for underselling myself last time, so let's see what we do this time.
Good.
Yeah. I've just kind of been around forever. Hang out in the lore forums a lot, answer a lot of questions, work with Gamerscape. I edited a covers it.
Okay.
What?
Well, I like broke out at the very end, so I didn't hear it. But
oh, so this one time I edited a book.
Oh, you edited a book, right? Yeah, you got punched in the face. I remember that.
Yeah.
And I think Ethys undersold himself this time, so I'm gonna let you guys know. Ethys does a lot of streams and he hangs out with Chad. He's part of the Australian community, very prominent member of the Australian community for Final Fantasy 14, as well as someone who makes lore videos that you guys definitely should be watching. A lot of them are coming out. He has 2 lore bombs out and another lore bomb coming. Is that better, Ethys?
Great. Beautiful. I love it.
All right, if you guys haven't guessed, the reason why we have Ethys and Moose on today is because we are going to be discussing lore and the story building and everything that happens in Final Fantasy 14 that we've loved over Shadowbringers. We did a basic show on the story with everybody a couple weeks ago, but I love the story so much that I want to dive even deeper into it. So why not bring the 2 guests who I believe, or at least I trust the most with their opinions with lore in the game. We are gonna. I'm not the best story person. I'm not the best lore person. I have a general idea of everything. So when I am ignorant, I mispronounce things. I say things that don't make any sense. That's just me. That I am learning here today, and I hope some of you guys are learning as well. And without further delay, I kind of want to get into it. I'm a little bit hyped to talk about it. Are you guys ready?
Go for it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the most recent thing to talk about, of course, is Eden. This might still be a little bit fresh on your minds. I mean, Eden's been out for just about a week and a half now, not too long. But we did get some information from it and maybe a lot of questions. So the first thing I want to talk to you about is, what did we learn from Eden, if anything?
Did you glean anything concrete from it, Ethys?
Yeah. I mean, all we can really say is that Eden is a thing, probably a machine, but we don't really know what it is. We know that its function is to convert ambient ether to an extreme umbral polarity, like in the extreme. And that Urianger at least thinks that was like the major catalyst for the Flood of Light. That's what like Minfilia was actually stopping when she like halted the Flood of Light. What she was actually doing was basically putting Eden out of commission, because it was presumably advancing across the lands, just converting all of the ether to extreme umbral polarity everywhere.
All right.
And that's all we really learned for sure. I mean, there's consequences to that. The ether is there. It's still there. Like the empty is still full of ether. It's just not going anywhere. It's not moving at all. And the plan is that we just need to convert it back. And for some reason, Urianger decides that the best way to do that is by summoning Primal.
Yeah, it was a big question mark for me too. Like as soon as we got there and they were like, "Oh, it's the first Sin Eater," I was like, "Oh, here we go." Like,
yeah,
I have no idea what's going on now. Like it's a giant machine. You can get inside of it. It's like doing things, and it's now the first Sin Eater. Okay, well now we need to know who built it, under whose instructions, where it came from. We know nothing about it, and now it's the cause of everything we've been dealing with. Like, okay, like,
yep,
me.
All right, sounds good.
Yeah, on board.
So now I don't even like know what to expect from the empty, because like in the past we've been told that a lightborn void is just empty. It's nothing. There's nothing there, and now we see the empty, like the actual what they call the empty, and it's just a desert full of ether that's not moving. Like, is that an accurate representation of what a whole world with a completed flood would look like, or is it just kind of the status quo there because it wasn't?
Well, yeah, and that's one of the big questions I have is because from my assumption, from our conversations before at this, I thought like it would just destroy everything. It'd just be absolutely nothing, but it sounds like it's just a big freeze array.
That's what we were told. Yeah, like Moose says, that's what we were told, that like a completed flood of light, there would be absolutely nothing. It would just be blank slate. And what we've learned from the empty is that it's the opposite. Like everything is still there. It's just not moving.
Right.
It's just like halted. It's just coagulated.
That's kind of interesting to hear it change a little bit. But I mean, this is Final Fantasy 14, especially within Shadowbringers. It seems like we're learning stuff with the characters in the game, right? Like it's almost like the characters have an idea of what's going on. And sometimes it's being proven incorrect later on, and that's fine because that's how the real world works, right? We make theories, and eventually we are either wrong or right later on. So I kind of like it, but go ahead.
Well, I love like the new knowledge we have in Shadowbringers is stuff that contradicts stuff that like Heidelin told us through the word of the mother in very ambiguous but direct terms. Like you say, we're just kind of having to question everything that we thought we knew in the same way that the characters are. But at the same time, we have to be a little bit careful about claiming to have knowledge of things now because of where this knowledge is coming from and the biases that are attached to the people that are delivering it to us.
Right. Like Hades telling us all the different things.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, he's not telling us anything anymore, right?
No.
Yep. And I hope you guys know, by the way, this is a spoiler show. I didn't put it in the title. Maybe I should, but I mean, it's
obviously a spoiler show.
Yeah, it's pretty obvious this is a spoiler show. And we're even spoiling even further by trying to make guesses and diving deeper than what the game is actually telling us. But Eden, the one interesting thing I will say is that Yoshida said a while back when he was describing the raid that we would be fighting our imagination. And so it kind of sparked that they were going to do things similar to what they did in the previous raid, which was just spawn random bosses for nostalgia's sake, which they kind of did. But it explains it a little bit further that we're just bringing back primals. And it has somewhat of a purpose in the game, so it makes it feel a little bit better because we're killing them to destroy or killing them to revive elements in the world, right?
Yeah, I mean, this is a really this is a really tough one. The way I sort of understood it is that we know what happens when you kill a primal in terms of how the ether returns to the land. Whereas if we're just drawing a bunch of ether out of the land, converting its polarity and then putting it back, we have no idea what will happen. And the consequences could be disastrous, but we simply don't know. And the dialogue seems to imply that Urianger is just like, yeah, it could be terrible. But we do know what happens when you kill a primal. we've observed that a bunch of times, and the way the ether returns to the land when you do that doesn't seem to cause any damage. So why don't we just try doing that?
Yeah.
And by the way,
classic.
I just arbitrarily know how to summon primals.
It'd be the classic Urianger cost-benefit analysis. It's just like, how bad could it go? Like, what's already happened out here is kind of what we're afraid of. So summon.
Right. Besides us completely dying and not being able to continue with our saving the world part, right?
That doesn't even cross anyone's mind that we could possibly lose. That's the thing that kind of made me giggle. I was like, Orange, are you serious? He's like, yeah, you've killed like hundreds of primals. It's fine. I'm like, you're taking I mean, when I first did it, I was like, are you taking just like all of the empties water ether and summoning Leviathan with it? Because that's a lot of ether, and like that's gonna be a really strong primal. And it's not quite that much, but I was like, dude, are you sure this is a good idea?
I'm a little worried about the future ones. I mean, if we go by this one, we can expect 6 elements, 6 primals, probably the 6 that we were familiar with. And then that leaves us with what, like 4 more random, we don't know things that are probably associated with Eden and Gaia. But like, what about, like, Shiva's going to be awkward.
Yeah,
that's going to be interesting, isn't it?
I kind of really want to see how they play that.
Right. Well, they could just grab a person and make them turn into Shiva, right?
Well, you don't have to do that.
Oh, but I mean,
if you want, any volunteers?
I think it's going to be interesting to see what they pick overall. I mean, do you guys have an idea of which ones they will pick out for each element?
I think it would just be the base 6.
The base 6? Okay.
Yeah.
The ones from that like original poster.
Shiva. Who are we missing?
Garuda,
yeah.
So okay, are you guys? I guess if we talk into how they're going into the style of doing raid and everything else, that's kind of more of just a general experience with doing the raids himself. But I mean, does the story make sense at least with Eden?
Yeah, I mean,
it depends on what like the final answers are, but.
I mean, we have faith that it will make sense when we like actually get to the end of it. Like, there's a lot of open questions at the moment. There's a lot of stuff that's just like, okay, see you in 5.2, I guess.
Good reason to be cynical and poke fun about it on the way, but like we've never had really a good precedent to assume that what we're going to have in the future is disappointment. Like. So we can be silly about it until then, but I'm optimistic.
Okay. I found out watching chat is that my enter giveaway stuff from last week is still active, so I'm going to have to try to turn that off while we're having this discussion.
Doesn't that legally obligate you to give something away?
No, there's no legal obligation to any of this crap. No. And I didn't talk about it at the beginning of the show. I guess I can go ahead and, while we're on the topic here, is that we will be doing a giveaway later in the show, and it is based around nothing really with what we're talking about, because I didn't find one of the giveaways that I wanted to say, hey, this relates to the show. Instead, it's just a Moogle speaker. So I don't know if you guys have ever had the urge to own a speaker where it comes out of the trumpet of the Moogle and hook it up to a computer and listen to Soken. But, you know, that's going to be here today. I love how Ethys is just like, well, okay. Cool.
All right. Good save.
Yeah, that's good. That works out. All right. So we don't have to talk about Eden too much more here, because, I mean, there's still a lot of stuff that we're learning and dissecting. But I do want to talk about the thing that has kind of bothered me a little bit about the world building and everything else is how time travel works, because it works differently in no matter what story, movie, whatever you're watching it. They all have their own kind of theory about how it should play out, and they try to play it out. How does time travel work in Final Fantasy 14?
Like,
come on, you guys, you got it.
Right now it feels like fuck you, that's how, but I'm working on it. But like Alexander was really well put together is why I'm freaking out about it. Like
Yes.
always makes me nervous. It's catastrophically hard to do. It almost always makes the world feel smaller and insignificant. So every time it comes up, I get nervous. And then Alexander played it so well, like by creating like the stable closed loop and taking all sorts of factors into consideration. But the way they did that was like 4-dimensional space-time, like that past, present, and future are all happening at once. It's one block, and you experience it as a series of individual moments, like because you have to, because you're 3D, but it's an illusion. And if you change anything about history or time, what was vanishes, and what is the way it's always been, because it's an illusion. But this is not that. This is something different, and we don't know if it's like infinite branches of time or whether it's just like an isolated branch of time, and even that is complicated to explain now.
Yeah, so that's the only way I can really make sense of it, is that it's a branch. Just a branch, right?
It's an alternate timeline.
Yeah. But does that line up with what happened before at all? With Alexander doing all his stuff?
Oh, and Alexander? No, not really.
Okay.
Alexander didn't create an alternate timeline. Alexander just consolidated the timeline that we exist in, basically.
Okay.
Yeah, whereas this is not that. This is like an alternate future deal. I don't think we're going to have an answer for it, honestly. But we have kind of like opened the possibility for more shenanigans like this happening.
Yeah, I mean, as soon as you start time travel, the possibility's always there.
Well,
it's a rabbit hole.
Yeah, but the thing we got to realize is that it's a rabbit hole that we've had open since at least Heaven's Ward. And there's time magic in ARR, like Nabriales uses time magic. Was that the first time we see time magic?
I can't remember.
I think Nabriales is probably the first time we see it like really unambiguously.
Yeah, we've seen like the Charlayans do localized personal time shenanigans before, but it's like mostly just warping the space around them.
Okay. Well, yeah, I mean, it's important to note that like this isn't something they just like pulled out of their ass in Shadowbringers, and it's not a case of them like scraping the bottom of the barrel as it is with perhaps a lot of narratives that end up resorting to time travel. The other important thing to note is that going into the twinning and destroying the proto-Alexander there, which as far as we can tell was basically the pilot and navigator for the Crystal Tower's time travel function. That's gone. That's no longer like a convenient little Deus Ex Machina sitting in the wings. Like that alternate future is inaccessible to us, at least right now, and something we don't necessarily have to worry about too much.
I think that's at least the attempt, because I mean, once you introduce these kind of time shenanigans, once something exists in one point in time, it's accessible from any point in time if you follow the illusion that everything's happening at once. So it's like, is anything you've defeated ever gone? Is anything that exists ever non-existent? But like, I think this is just the story trying to be tidy about it.
Yeah, I mean, they definitely tried. I mean, the thing that always bothers me is, all right, so it did happen once. We're in an infinite timeline. How is it never not going to happen again? Right? And what makes us not being a point of reference that like, oh, it's stable, we figured out time travel and it's good. We can always just go back wherever we want. Infinite time, you're eventually going to hit us again, right?
What makes me nervous is that we already had 14 dimensions and we've played with time with Alexander, and that was kind of the 4D time travel. And now we have this. But if you take this kind of mechanic to an extreme, you have like this ever expanding fractal of dimensions and timelines on forever. And that makes me nervous, but I have faith they're going to clean it up.
Yeah. It sucks because it's a painful thing to clean up. It's not not easy, right? Can you guys think of ways off the top of your head?
Time travel is so difficult that even the Asians, like, they either couldn't figure it out or it didn't occur to them to create a machine to like go back in time and like fix the void, for instance.
After 12,000 years, right?
Yeah, after 12,000 years, yeah. Unless that was Eden, unless they did think of it, but I don't know, like we don't know about that. But Emmett Selk was like really surprised. He thought he knew how the Crystal Tower worked and that there was no way they could have done something like this with it. And then when he finds out that they did, he was like, oh shit, oh awesome, okay, I'm gonna kidnap Graha T because I can use this, maybe. But like it's something that's so difficult that after 12,000 years, the Asians didn't do it, as far as we know. And that it took the Ironworks 200 years to set up this project after the alternate future 8th calamity where, you know, we died and they started like getting the ball rolling on it. It was so difficult for Alexander that Alexander just like refused to do it because like, no, it takes too much power. It's going to like fuck up the planet if I do that. If I go back in time and try and prevent any calamities, so doing will actually kind of cause more damage just getting there and getting back than whatever it is that it would prevent. So we've established that time travel is like almost prohibitively difficult. And then the few times that it has been pulled off, we've either destroyed it or like the case with Alexander, he's just like refused to be cooperative and he's like, no, I'm just putting myself in this little time bubble here so no one can fuck with me. It's like we've made sure that it's like a one and done sort of thing and like no one can use that again. And
the strange thing about all this again is that we go back and yeah, it takes a very long time to like Sid and his whole crew, Ironworks, everything, 200 years do it. Again, we have this super crazy intelligent master being that was here before all the split, existing for 12,000 years, and it never hits him. As I could do time.
I'm actually writing down something you just said. Like it just kind of slipped out as a side thing in the conversation, but like the idea that maybe the Asians had tried to fix the void with Eden and it didn't work, and they were just like, all right, fine, we'll just use this somewhere else then. That's a cool idea. I want to explore that later.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, with Eden, I mean, popular theories at the moment is that either it's an Amratine or otherwise Asian thing. That it could be whoever made Omega is responsible for that as well. Or it could be some kind of Hail Mary attempt by the people of the 13th Shards at some point. Okay. We really don't know. We have no idea what Eden is.
Okay. It's something to explore, something even for scholars of Final Fantasy 14 to have to wait.
I was going to reply to something in the chat real quick.
Sure, go ahead.
Yeah.
They're like, one of the things I'm seeing is absolutely right, that because Graha is where he is now, because he has the memory that he has, and things happen to him the way that they did, and he has memories of those things, it can't be the same four-dimensional block we're used to in Alexander. There has to be a split, because the things that he remembers allegedly will not come to pass now. So there has to be a branch between the quote-unquote old future and new future, and that's what we don't understand how that's possible and how that works yet. So that's like the big thing we're trying to figure out. And the only theory I have for it is to even just look at the name of the dungeon, the twinning, because it refers to the concept of crystal twinning, which is like where an inverse version of a crystal grows up through itself, which is, and like, I want to believe that that's like this really deep metaphor for like how they're handling time travel, and that we've created like a good future branching up through a doomed to be bad future, but it's probably just like a clever reference to the fact there's two crystal towers.
It's probably just a metaphor.
Yeah, it's probably just like, yeah, there's two crystal towers now because there's one from a future that doesn't exist, so you have two. Great, yeah.
It's really tough. I mean, like, I think we can probably imagine that they're not even sure internally how it works.
They could still be cleaning it up.
Yeah.
I mean, the part that gives me faith is that Ishikawa was involved in both, right?
Yeah, that's true.
Okay. Well, I guess we'll see, and maybe they'll give us some answers coming down a little bit later down the road. One thing, I mean, we did learn from this show and the last show we had you guys on. There's been a lot of things that have been like, holy shit, we were wrong. We didn't know exactly what we were talking about. One quick note is derail a bit. You know how we were talking about the whole Garlean storyline and how it's just going to be. Meanwhile, back in so and so. And they did it. How do you feel about that, Ethys?
I mean, not great, but like not that much time has passed on the source as far as we can tell. Like when we go back, people are like, "Oh, didn't expect to see you back so soon." So we have no idea how much time has passed, but it seems like it's not enough time for anything like really super significant to have happened back there. So it's just like something that we'll get to in the next couple of patches, I guess.
I mean, that's going to be part of how they're going to have to explain how time works, maybe too, with it working differently on the first and kind of not lining up exactly the same, because they just said it's kind of mysterious, right? It could be 100 years, could be a minute, or a year could be like a month, or like they didn't really say there's like a stable calculation for it.
Well,
I'm afraid they're just going to blame the rift. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, they are just going to blame. I mean, when we first travel and like we learn that we can travel back, Graha's like, oh yeah, no, it's super convenient. We're at like this weird moment where the two are like really close together in space time or whatever, and it's like almost like an equivalent moment. It's almost like the two planes have got like this orbit through space-time, and they're like the closest point together in their orbit. It's something like that. But Graha's like, yeah, no, they're like really close together at the moment, and like, yeah, like last week it was like 100 years apart, but now it's like basically the same time. It's cool. So that's sort of the hand-wavy explanation for why in the Final Fantasy XIV time bubble we can sort of like jump back and forth and not have to deal with like, you know, these century-long time skips every time we do.
Okay.
But it's not like reliable, and it's like very, very vague, and it could change at any moment, honestly.
Yeah, I think the explanation that they're probably just not going to go any deeper than is that time passes at the same like rate inside of the worlds, but because of the rift between them and the chaotic nature of the rift, that the relativity between any two worlds could change at any time. So one could speed up relative to the other, slow down relative to the other, and they just kind of float by each other all the time. And this just happens to be a moment the source and first are floating by each other, and it's kind of equal. And if they went deeper than that, I would be impressed and surprised.
Okay. We'll get away from time for a bit, because I feel like that's it's going to be a bit. This is something that I'm not. It explains a lot of stuff that happens in the world, and it's something that we're constantly learning about. Is the physics in regards to aether, right? The aether of physics. Is that how I should say it, Moose?
Yeah, etherophysics.
Etherophysics. Okay, and kind of how that's supposed to work with dimensional physics and everything else. What did we learn about how all that comes together here in Shadowbringers?
I'm gonna let Moose take this one first.
In terms of how it relates to dimensional, okay. I think like the part that we have to tackle is just light, dark, astral, umbral, and I hate it because I've had to explain it every single day since this patch started.
Yeah.
So, I mean, part of the big thing is that Aether, in terms of Final Fantasy XIV, it's just the great MacGuffin. It's whatever we need it to be. It's always going to be at the root of the pseudoscientific explanation they give for everything. It's just the thing we need for plot fuel. If you look at what's changed over the years, Aether as it works in 5.0 just isn't how it worked in 1.0 or kind of even 2.0 sometimes. They change it as they need it. And I get the feeling that what just happened in 5.0 was a bit of a compromise between the world setting team and the scenario team and Yoshida. Because they really wanted light to be, like the enemy this time around. Because even if it's the thing that we like too much of a good thing is still bad.
Mm-hmm.
And that too much of a good thing can often look like the thing that's a bad thing. So the number one thing we learned is that even though light and darkness are not elemental forces at all, they're on like a primordial energy spectrum that's a totally different type of energy, that light and darkness all along have been behind the astral and umbral charges that elements can get. And they're not synonymous, but they're related, and that Eorzea has had them backwards.
Now, is it because it works backwards, or just we understood it in a reverse fashion?
We understood it in a reverse fashion because of like the easiest like parallel that I can give you is like the northern and southern hemisphere. Like, is it really? Like, what if you found out the southern hemisphere in terms of the like cosmic universal orientation was actually just the other way around? Like, did it matter to us for most of history that the northern hemisphere was the northern hemisphere? Not really.
Right.
But we could be wrong. We don't know. So Eorzean philosophy has been all along that like things that are bright and nurturing and inspire growth and activity, those are the astral things. And that things that inspire passivity and entropy and death and decay and decline, all of those things are like the umbral things. So they decided that astral things were bright and umbral things were dark. And they were wrong, because it turns out that the primordial force of light is what drags things towards passivity and stasis. So they just have a philosophical assumption that is wrong, literally.
Okay.
Whereas on Novrant, they just observed like what effects umbral and astral had, and they were like, "Oh, look, a shitload of umbral ether is light."
Okay.
They just kind of treat it a lot more literally.
Yeah, they do things that sound a little bit more literally, or more literal, like calling Lala's dwarfs. But yeah, no, it's cool to see that. And I know the whole point of Shadowbringers was to say, let's flip everything on its head and make what we thought was good and holy and great, the angels being the bad guys, something they've done in a lot of JRPGs, as part of the storyline here going into the first. And I like it. I think it's cool, right? But it does feel like they just, like you said, it's kind of pseudoscience adjusting it the way it needs to work for the storyline. No, Ethys has a face. Yeah.
I mean, the point is that just like if you have too much of anything, whether it's any particular element or elements in general to either pole, like bad stuff happens. You know, things get out of balance, things get corrupted, they transform. If you go too far to astral, then you end up with void sand or something that looks like void sand. If you go too far to umbral, you end up with sin eaters.
Yeah, we got sin eaters, or was it void sand?
Yeah, I mean, it seems like they're basically two sides of the same coin, right? I mean, we don't actually know whether they have the same qualities, but in terms of like what causes them, we know that like the flood of darkness presumably was an astral phenomenon, right? And it created the void scent as a result, and we've just got the complete opposite here.
And we know extremists are evil. I mean, that's what it is. Just they're extremists.
Yeah, well, it's not that they're evil. It's just that they're like monsters. You know.
Okay.
It's like they've gone out of balance and they've lost their minds, and they have this hunger to, you know, feed on ether.
Okay.
As a result of being out of balance, right?
Right. All right, Moose, you're all on board with that too?
Yep, very much.
Okay.
Can I grab are we keeping questions from chat or answering questions from chat?
You can answer whatever questions you want. If there's something in chat that comes up relevant that you're like, I want to answer, just please go ahead.
There's one that I'd like just feel like I should mention because it comes up every day. Like there's always like this difference between uppercase light, lowercase light, when they mean one thing versus the other thing. Calamity. Oh no, phone, go away. Calamities are almost always elemental in nature, as far as we know. They're on the elemental energy spectrum. It's the whole force behind a calamity. So when we have a flood of light, that's a flood of a primordial force, but the calamity, even though it's blamed on light this time around, the calamity would have been all elements tilted umbrally because they brought in so much light. So it's like it's both, and that makes it really confusing.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right. Like last time, and every time that I bring anybody on to talk about story and lore, I keep up for like half of it, and then like I'm like, yeah, I got it, follow it, sure, we're good.
Basically, when you look at Bahamut's calamity in the lore book, we know that it's all elements tilted astrally, and we would have assumed before that that was energy and light, right? But we now know that it's like darkness, dark energy. And when you look at it in the cutscene, that calamity is even like angry dragon fruit pink.
Yeah, and it makes sense.
So we just assume that this one works the other way because it has to be elemental. It's probably all elements umbrally if Bahamut's was astrally. And then we look at what's going on and we see that there's a presence of too much light and that the light is skewing everything umbrally, and it all fits. Yeah. It's just confusing.
So I do kind of have a question when we start talking about calamities and everything else, because we're kind of in that a little bit. Is when this happened recently, like Bahamut happened, I guess like 5 years ago, 10 years ago? How long?
It was more than 5, but you can't really say how much more.
Okay. So doesn't it seem kind of soon to have another calamity?
Yeah, it's super soon. The thing is, it seems like they're normally spread so far apart just because it takes such a long time to kind of like prime the source again for another one. Mm-hmm. Because a calamity basically destroys all civilization, as a consequence, puts you back into the Dark Ages. And everything needs to kind of like build up again to the point where you're sort of like ready for another one. But it seems like just because the last calamity was so effectively mitigated by, Louis Soir and Phoenix and all that kind of stuff, that like the land recovered pretty quickly. Civilization kind of got back on its feet pretty quickly, and we're ready to go again for another one. And it seems like that's what like Emmett Sock was intending for the Gallian Empire, right? He sort of talks about the Gallian Empire being almost this like calamity machine. Like he managed to get one good one out of the Allegans, and he was kind of hoping that maybe he'd be able to get a few more out of Garlemald. Okay. I mean, that's the way we basically understand it, right? Mm-hmm. It's just like,
yeah,
it takes time to prime it, and the details of the 7th calamity were kind of a special case, such that it hasn't taken very long to like reset the primer, right?
That's exactly how I understand it. It's just that like usually when a calamity wipes out so much of the world, that most of what's on people's mind is, okay, we have to come together, we have to cooperate, we have to put our differences aside, we have to survive. And then it takes time for them to become so prosperous that competition breeds again, that they start being willing to take each other over again. And then not only that, but you have to get their societies high enough that they're capable of wielding the weapons that would cause a calamity in the first place. And you have to keep like pitting them against each other slowly in balance until they're desperate. At this time, Louisoix prevented so much that we still had Eorzea and the Garlean Empire pretty much where they were. So keep it going.
Yeah. This gives us a new understanding of like the astral and umbral eras as well, because we've always thought of like, okay, well, we call it an astral era because it's the period of like growth and prosperity. We call it an umbral era because it's, it's the Dark Ages, right? But now we can kind of look at it like, well, almost the opposite again, right? Is that we're calling these umbral calamities, and none of them have been, at least to this point. The alternate future 8th calamity, that would have been the first like proper umbral calamity. Yeah. The 7th calamity was an astral umbral calamity. So we kind of have to like throw out the nomenclature for this entirely, honestly. But now it's like what we describe as astral eras. maybe we need to think about that the other way around as well. Because the umbral eras, what we thought of as umbral eras or like dark ages, that's when things are like building back up. That's when things are kind of like, you know, growing and building up again. Right. Whereas in what we would have described as astral eras, everything is kind of like
it's pretty deep.
What's the yeah, right.
Hey, deep dive. We're doing it, guys. We're doing it. Keep going.
It's on the tip of my tongue. What's the word I'm looking for?
Moose, you got it. Tell him.
No.
What's the concept?
Basically, it's
stagnation.
Yeah. That's not the word. That's not quite the word I was looking for. But yeah, things are just like stagnant and just static, and the status quo is just being like maintained, and we're just sitting around like waiting for the next calamity. Okay. At least from an Ascian perspective, right?
See, that's pretty deep. I was just going to blame Lufon. I was just going to blame that Charlayan historian for being like, yeah, there's a lot of like growth and good shit. So that's the astral era.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. Yeah,
it's all his fault.
Yeah, he started calling the calamities umbral calamities based on this bias, right? And that's where so much of the problem comes from.
It's really weird to say that it's already been 40 minutes in the show, and I'm on question 3 or 4, right?
Should you pick up the pace?
Well, we don't have to. Ethys has plenty of energy to keep going for quite a while, so we could probably keep it going for a good bit.
The sun's nearly up.
Almost up. And almost thank you. I say it every single time that I can remember to say it, but of course, thank you, Ethys, for waking up so early.
No, it's fine. It's good. It's fine.
MVP.
Yeah. Well, let's go into the Ascians a little bit here.
Okay.
Because we did learn a lot about them and kind of how everything works. There's some stuff that we're going to talk about on the show that was mentioned directly in some of the cutscenes, but a lot of the stuff was hard to absorb. You know, it's funny. I named the show Skipped Cutscenes because they said for me to do that on the last show. Happy recommended it, so I went forward with it. But this is kind of to help maybe some of the more moderate people here too. What exactly is the Ascian hierarchy? Is there one that we can distinguish from what we've learned?
Yeah, I mean, there's sundered and unsundered Ascians. I mean, at least the way like Emmett Selk describes it is that somehow everything was sundered except for him and Laha, Brea, and Elidibus, and we have no idea how they managed to escape that.
Well, I mean, they were the top. They were the top dogs, though, right?
Well, they were among the top dogs. There was this convocation of 13, and they were 3 of them. But all of this convocation are now like what have become the Ascians. And everyone that was alive back then, everyone that had a soul back then, their soul was split into 14 shards, and obviously like spread across the different shards. And then Emmett Selk, Elidibus, and Laha Brea are like, all right, we're gonna find like the shards of our buddies' souls, and we're gonna like, you know, let them in on the secret and basically like convert them and treat them like Ascians, but they're not. They're just like little bits, just like little shards. It's a fucking mess. It's basically an explanation for why Nabriales was such a pussy.
Okay.
And why Emmett Selk is not.
Okay. And why Ardbert doing the same thing we did to Laha Brea ganked Mitron.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yeah, so each of the so the lesser Ascians, okay, we're talking about the hierarchy. All right, there's the three big ones. They're the ones that were not sundered. They're a lot more powerful. They still have their whole soul. And then all of the other Ascians are just like the scattered bits of the soul of this original convocation, right? And when they are defeated, the Asians go out and find like another shard of the same guy's soul, and basically like, you know, put the robe and mask on him and are like, congratulations, you're the new Nabriales. Well done. Here's your badge and gun. And they're like, what are you talking about? Who are you? Who am I? And they're like, you're Nabriales, remember? Nabriales? You don't remember, don't worry about it, it's fine. He's the crystal of darkness, go have fun.
Okay.
I mean, it's basically it, right? It's what they're doing.
Yeah.
Right? It's
as far as they've admitted.
Yeah. We have no idea how these three survived.
Okay. No idea how they survived.
We don't even know if that's terribly important or if it was just like a hand wave for why Emerald got ganked back in like 2.1, 2.2, and then shows up for a meeting in 2.3 like, huh?
Yeah, right. Yeah. So to be clear on that one, Emerald was defeated by Galuf Cardassian, right? And that was supposed to happen again around 2.1, and then we see him in a cutscene in 2.3, and we're just like, what the fuck? Seriously, Galuf like sacrificed all of the students of Baldessian, and teleported an island, like, you know, into the ethereal stream to destroy you, and you're just like, oh hey, so yeah, hi, sorry I'm late. Yeah.
Yeah, so
and now we're just like, oh well, they must have just found like another shard of his soul and just like, you know, promoted it.
Okay.
Yeah, it could have been a lampshade, but for all we know, it could be something big. And so, they also mentioned that they can, like, that it's a lot harder, but they can take someone totally unrelated and promote them. Like, why would they bring that up unless it's going to be relevant? Like, they wasted a couple textiles on that. Where's that coming in? So be on the lookout for that, I guess.
Yeah.
So they're just going to pull someone up and they're going to be like, hey, you're Emmett now?
Yeah. Maybe Xenos, maybe $4.
La Habrea round 2. La Habred.
Yeah.
But doesn't Xenos like hate, or he doesn't like hate them, but he doesn't.
No, he doesn't give a shit about them.
Yeah, they're like worthless to him. Like he only loves us, I guess. We're the only.
Well, they're worthless to him, but he's not worthless to them. You know.
Right. I mean, they ran away from him. They're scared of him. All right. No. You don't think so?
No, I think that's a misunderstanding. I do not think Elidibus ran away from Xenos. I think Elidibus just realized that Emmett Selk was dead, and there was literally no point him being in Xenos's body and trying to continue this like Black Rose plot because it was foiled. It wasn't going anywhere.
Okay.
If you read the transcript I do, which is to every language of it and like find a common thread between them, it looks like Elidibus didn't know what to expect, and that was the problem. It wasn't necessarily that he was terrified of Xenos, it's that he didn't know whether he should be, because he didn't know how to gauge his potential anymore, and that it was better to just get the hell out of Dodge.
Well, I mean, he's the last big major guy, right?
Come up with another plan.
Okay. Which he's going to do his deep thinking on the moon.
Yeah, it's his thinking plans.
So he just knows that if he can't predict Xenos, it's better to just treat him as though he could be a major threat.
And just to reiterate, guys, if you do have questions, you can ask them in chat here. And if Moose or Ethys sees them, and maybe it comes up to a point that they're completely free to answer them. But we will have a section later at the end of the show where we will be dedicating that completely to answering questions you guys submit into this little form that I just posted here. So feel free to send it in there if you're not getting it here, and we'll try to grab them near the end of the show as well. All right. Sorry. One thing that you guys have mentioned about the Asians, I don't know if this is going on a completely different direction. It's related. We talk about them being tempered. Are they just tempered to Zodiac?
They tell us that they are.
They said that they're tempered.
If Emmett's telling the truth, then yeah, they're tempered.
Okay.
He said as much. He's like, yeah, we summoned Zodiac. He tempered us, and like ever since then, they've been basically compelled to resurrect him. So a lot of like the kind of moral reasoning that people have been trying to do on the behalf of Emmett Selk is completely irrelevant because it's not a moral issue for him. If he's tempered, he's compelled to initiate the rejoinings and resurrect Zodiac. That's like, he can't do anything other than that.
Okay. And did they explain that we were tempered by Hydaelyn?
No.
No,
a lot of people are assuming that.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people are making a lot of assumptions, like based on what we've learned about the Ascians. The idea, for instance, there was out of the convocation, so out of like the leaders of Amarot, there was an almost complete consensus that they were going to summon Zodiac, except for one of them, which is now described as the dissident, that people believe was us. So basically, our ancient pre-sundered soul was one of these, big dick Amratines that said, no, I don't want to summon Zodiac. I'm gonna go and start a rebellion and eventually, summon Hydaelyn. And I think the big clue there is that when they describe the dissident's gender is based on our character gender.
Yep.
Right.
Yep. There's two separate lines.
Yeah. So that's the one and only hint that we've got. So it's likely that's the case, but again, it's just like speculative at this point. But the assumption that people are making that because the summoners of Zodiac were tempered, the summoners of Hydaelyn must also have been tempered, I think is a leap. I think that's a huge leap, because everything about Hydaelyn's MO is the complete opposite of Zodiac. That's like the whole point of Hydaelyn, right? Is that she was the antithesis of Zodiac in every way, right?
Okay. And Moose,
that's where I'm at right now, pretty much. Like the big thing is like when Emmett admitted that they were all tempered, he was very nonchalant about it. And the only thing I could think of was like, I really want to see pre-sundering Emmett standing next to current day Emmett and just see what his facial expression is when he's like, oh yeah, when we summoned him, he tempered us. It's only natural. You can't be that close to something with that much psychic power and expect not to be. And it's totally normal that we live to spread his darkness now. And I'd love to see the original Emmett Sulk's face, like looking at him say that.
Like, excuse me, what?
Yeah, like I want to know if that's in line with his pre-existing worldview or not, because I think that would tell me everything I need to know about the Ascians in the end of the story.
You mean like in line with their expectations?
Yeah, like if the original Emmett Sulk was just like, oh yeah, what could go wrong? Yeah, spread his darkness forever. Good. Yeah, that's great. Like,
okay.
But like they described the original summoners of Hydaelyn as having sacrificed themselves to power her, which leads me to wonder if there are any who were tempered in the same way. And if they are, what they're like or how she uses those souls. I'm really hoping there are 12 of them, because that would be really fun.
Okay. Quick detour, I guess, here, since we're talking about the 12. the convocation, right? They were creators. They were responsible for the creation of like most of the stuff that we see in the world, right? We go through the academia and we go through like these specific sections that are dedicated to like specific biomes. Like, one of the convocation was really good at making fish and like water element stuff. Another one was really good at creating like seedkin and kind of, forestry sort of stuff. I'm looking at the convocation and I'm like, were the 12 the Ascians?
Like that was one of the first
memories of the convocation.
Like one of the original theories ever. Like in 2.0, as soon as we saw there was a group of Ascians, the first theory was, what if it's the 12?
And we were all like, that's fucking crazy. That's stupid.
Yeah, there was no satisfying way to do it. But I think if you use the ancient structure of society and this dissidence between them and like the first war that they ever had, I shouldn't even call it a war. It's not confirmed to be a war. We know it was a struggle against one another. We don't know the degree to which they fought. But I think that would be really cool if you could turn that into like the 12 or some kind of shadow convocation.
Yeah, there's some. I mean, yeah, I'm pretty confident that we're gonna find that they are some memory or some remnant of something from that time, right? One way or another.
Yeah, before like the big sundering between killing Zodiac and everything. Because I mean, if you're talking about how they were really good at creating fish and everything else, and just that kind of things out there, right?
It's just like the Amaritines and their powers and the way they kind of like position themselves in the pre-sundered world as being like, you know, masters of the world and protectors of the world and all that kind of bollocks. It just like echoes so much of like the Eorzean creation myth that I'm just like, this might not be a coincidence. This is very interesting.
Right. No, it makes perfect sense because they created stuff by just thinking about it, right? And that's just their thing.
Yeah, and then after the time of the 12 in Eorzean myth, they just disappeared.
Away.
They just went away.
The first Umbral era was over, they were like, bye.
And no one could really remember them or why any of this happened.
Yeah. So I mean, let's go into that world a little bit too. We only know what happened in Amarat, right? There's other stuff happening, and they're even having debates and discussions on how to handle it, but they don't really give us too much. What we're assuming is that maybe the whole near raid has something to do with it, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's
3 entries for the near raid so far, and that's one of them.
Okay. So we can assume we have this whole crazy super utopia city where people are just kind of creating stuff, having these wonderful discussions, and eventually things go horribly wrong, and Zodiac and everything. I'm guessing the other people who existed were not super powerful by any means at all?
No idea.
No?
No clue.
We have
like,
no idea.
Emmett Selk seems to think that like all of the living people were immortal at the time, but we don't know if that's true yet. I mean, it seems like a safer assumption, but we don't, like, mostly we just know the Amarat's worldview.
Okay. And even if these other people were immortal, we don't know whether or not they had the same like powers, the same control over creation magic. We just know that somewhere across the sea, there was at least one other major civilization that was kind of falling to shit, while in Amarat, everyone's just kind of like twiddling their thumbs and going, do we do something about this? Do we pretend that we're not responsible for this? We don't know that they are. It's interesting. Y'shtola makes the point that like creation magic is such that pretty much everything is a primal, in a sense, like everything that they created. But they could get away with it because they had so much ether in their own body that it wasn't like draining ether from the land, in the way that the primals do.
Okay.
But I mean, it's like one thing to kind of like snap your fingers and create like an outfit for yourself or like a beverage or something. It's quite another thing to create like whole cities. And
it was a little intense, like recreating the entire Amarat before the sundering. But
it's like but it's like that was just like every day, like back then, as far as we understand, like everything that Amarat had and everything that it was shit that they just created out of their own ether. And it's like, okay, so your planet is dying. It's under some kind of terrible like star scourge or whatever. It's hard to imagine that they're not responsible for it in some way, you know? And again, like pure speculation, we have no idea like what caused this first calamity, how it happened, or even like what really was happening. But I will be so surprised if we don't find out that they're not responsible for it.
That's what could be responsible if not them. I mean, do we learn that in the near raid? I guess.
Oh, I've been trolling that we should make it the presence of Silvertear Lake.
Okay.
Like when we talk about the powers of creation magics and everything Amarat was doing, it's so easy to just go into this assumption that, yeah, if you have like hundreds of practically immortal, impossibly powerful God Genesis creating, like that eventually it's going to go sideways. That it's just inevitably something's going to go catastrophically wrong. It's so easy to fall into that assumption that and even the fact that even after the disaster started, it primarily ripped creation magics away from people and just had it spontaneously doing shit. It's so easy to assume that they're the cause.
Well, that's just the way that these narratives work as well, right? It's like I mean, not only is it a Final Fantasy cliche, but it's like a cliche of the genre in general, is that you have these ancient societies that have, these limitless powers and knowledge, and think they're superior in every way and think they're gonna last forever, and they're undone by their hubris and basically destroy the world. It's happened in like every single Final Fantasy game.
Yeah, right.
So it's just like, it's almost inconceivable that the Amratines aren't responsible for that first calamity, and that they didn't themselves create the situation that necessitated the summoning of Zodiac in the first place.
So they're just really scared and they fucked themselves over. They got risk.
It seems like the obvious assumption, but like, as you say, what could it be if not them? Like, for me, the first place my mind goes is the fact that we've known for a while that the story we have now is not the story that used to be. There's been a change in trajectory. There used to be different bosses. There used to be different reasons for things. Like, it's all been shifted a little bit. And one of the things that's disappeared is there used to be something at Silvertear Lake. It was bound there. It was silent. We don't know what it is, and we know it's extraordinarily powerful. And now that's gone. We're never going to mention it again. And all we know about it is that like the concept art was baller. That's it. So every time I get a chance, I like just drop in this trolling idea of like, oh, what are we going to fight in the future? Yeah, presence of Silvertear Lake. What caused that great calamity? Oh, presence of Silvertear Lake.
Okay.
Yeah. Well.
Now I understand a little bit better why you said that, Moose. Thank you.
Look, it works for Gaius, okay?
Yeah. Gaius is still a mystery to me in a way that he's like a Ascian killer, right?
Yeah.
And he runs around and he kills lots of Ascians.
Where's the mystery?
How is he going about doing it? How much did they explain?
He just cuts them in half. He just
finds them and cuts them in half.
Yeah, I mean, well, the thing is, like, okay, so Ascians coalesce in our world generally by possessing someone, right? And if you kill the person they're possessing, they have to go back to Ascian land and like basically start again and try and find someone else to possess.
But how does he get their mask?
Well, he just takes it off them.
They're wearing their mask while they're like in control of somebody?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, just imagine this. You're an Ascian, okay?
Yeah.
You wake up in someone's body and Gaius is standing over you with a sword. Okay? And you go, fuck. Okay. And then you try and do it again. You go back to limbo, and then you're like, all right, let me try to possess someone else. You go and possess someone else. You wake up in their body, and you hear a knock on the door, and it's like Gaius dressed up as a pizza delivery guy. And you're like, shit. And he's just doing that. He's just doing that like over and over.
So he's not really
again.
killing the Ascians?
He's not destroying them as far as we know, in the sense that like we destroyed Nabriales or Igeon, but he's just hunting them down. He just has a massive hate burner for him.
Okay.
And that in itself is like slowing them down and preventing, whatever evil machinations they have, even if it's not destroying them permanently, Yeah, he's Deadpool looking for Francis. Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. Except Francis is La Habre, and then he finds out that we did it, and he's like, well, I guess I'll just keep going.
I mean, I think we want to believe that if he's wearing red masks on his belt, that he like knows enough to know that he killed them, but we don't know how he would yet, so we can't just make that leap.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. Let's go back to a little bit heavier stuff with Hydaelyn and Zodiark. So we created them, or not the Hessians? Technically, we did. The 14th of us did. We created Hydaelyn and we created Zodiark, and once we created them, why are they doing exactly what they're doing? Why is Zodiark doing? Why did he do what he was trying to do? Why is Hydaelyn doing what they're doing? What are their beliefs?
Primals are kind of directed by the impulse that produces them, right? So if people are summoning Zodiark in the middle of, you know, an apocalypse, just thinking like, okay, we need to reverse this, we need to prevent this by any means necessary. The primal that it produces is going to be some kind of like authoritarian monster that is just like, all right, by any means necessary, I'm going to need like half of the lives of everyone living on the planet. I'm hungry and I need a lot of power, so feed me, let's do it. And that monster that they created, again, we're taking a little bit of a leap here, but he's going to be like consistent with the kind of characteristics of his like initial summoning, right? So as far as we understand, they had to sacrifice like half of Amarot to summon him and reverse this first calamity. And then they needed to sacrifice like another half to kind of feed him after that. And they were planning on sacrificing even more to bring back like the first round of people that they sacrificed. And we just get this idea that Zodiark is just this very, very hungry, controlling, you know, just awful thing that was just like a last resort, kind of lesser of two evils sort of situation.
Was he a mistake, I'm assuming, or what would have happened without Zodiark?
No, they designed him. I mean, the knowledge that we have of creation magics is that they need like this very clear and specific blueprint. And it seems that Laha Brea specifically like actually designed the blueprint for Zodiark, and like everything about this primal was engineered. They just needed to sacrifice people to like fuel the process.
Okay. Moose, does that all sound about right?
Yeah. I mean, I understand it in very similar terms and connect it to slightly different stuff, but I mean, like nothing I could say is going to make anything he said different. Okay. What I connect it to primarily is the biography from 12. That he just has indomitable strength that twists all things, and he fashions the laws of all, the natural order, and administers these in place of the gods. And that's why they were so afraid of him. And if you look at Zodiark, like at the moment they were in and the calamity they were facing, that was the only thing that could save them. It was what they needed. But once you're past that point, you still have something that was summoned to be the will of the star, to be governor of all things. And even if you want to say, okay, well, we don't need anything on that level anymore, now you have a convocation of people that exist solely to keep him around tempered. Maybe could be what started the whole disagreement in the first place, is they just wanted him to govern everything forever. Like he was the new steward of the planet.
Okay.
So it's same terms.
And some people didn't want to be tempered and controlled by him and went the other direction.
Yeah, maybe you don't need to sacrifice people every time you want something in the world to change.
Okay. So they get Hydaelyn, and I'm sorry, did they sacrifice himself for Hydaelyn as well? Right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Allegedly.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
if you were looking at the like Ethys said, the what's on your mind when you summon them counts for a lot. And I think you can boil Zodiark down to the will of the star to govern all things, and you can boil Hydaelyn down to the thing that stops that thing and protects all of the new life that has come after, instead of trying to sacrifice it all to bring back the old stuff.
Even if you step further back than that, like Zodiac is like fear and desperation and like anxiety and prostration, whereas Heidelin is hope, effectively.
Yeah.
Okay.
Agreed.
And the dichotomy between those two forces, and the way that they represent light and darkness, and the way they might like literally be summoned from, you know, the planets like astral and umbral forces, right?
So, just out of a curious question for me, both of these didn't exist before, right? Now they exist. Could we ever go to a state where Heidelin and Zodiac don't exist anymore?
I mean, yeah, I suppose we could. It's hard to imagine what that would look like.
Yeah, I have the same deep breath hesitation just because there's stuff we don't know.
Mm.
Like before, what gave me pause was like, in terms of mortal life, Heidelin's just the center of the life stream. How do you excise that and keep the status quo that we have now? And now part of my anxiety in terms of can we get rid of both entirely is that Zodiac was the will of the star. And when he was the will of the star, smacking him and breaking him into 14 pieces broke the world into 14 pieces, implying that there's like this deep connection between the will of the star and the fate of the star. And if Heidelin is the new will of the star, what can we change? Okay. So we have on one side that they didn't exist and life was still fine, but it was a different kind of life that we knew, and this idea that maybe it's inherently a really bad idea. And I have no idea which the writers are going to pick.
You think we'll summon a third at any point, or is it always just going to be Heidelin and Zodiac?
No.
Okay.
I mean, the whole point of us like fighting against the Asians is that like they want to put things back the way they were, and we're like, no, let's not fuck with that. Like messing around with that kind of stuff went so horribly wrong last time. And Heidelin obviously realizes that. That seems to be like one of the reasons why she's so reluctant to ever like intervene with anything. Because the last time she did, she broke the metaverse.
Okay.
That's just like, nah, let's just try and like maintain things how they are and make sure that the people that are here alive now continue to be alive and healthy and prosperous.
Let's talk about this Moose a little bit here with chat. Bad and evil, good and great, right? Great. We always align Zodiac with bad because he's going to do bad things for us, right? I mean, that's what it is.
Well, yeah, I mean, we just have to take like the pragmatic maxim here and realize that in 14, as in real life, there is no things that are like fundamentally good or bad. It's just good for and bad for. Zodiac is bad for us and for everyone alive and for all, you know, civilization and hope and life and, you know, and good for the Asians.
There's only 3 of them. You know, come on.
Yeah, well, there'll be more than 3 of them. There'll be several of them if they get what they want. Great.
Does this mean that we have like people who are watching the show that are Zodiac sympathizers?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. There's heaps of people that are like, oh, Emmett did nothing wrong, and you know he's right. You know, when he says that like we're not really alive and he wouldn't feel guilty about killing us. All moral considerations about Emmett and about the Asians are completely disingenuous. They if they're tempered, they don't have moral considerations. Like you couldn't have an argument with a tempered Asian and convince them that what they were doing was wrong or evil. And in the same way, when Emmett tries to like justify what he's doing, he's just doing like this post hoc explanation for acting in a way that he's not capable of acting otherwise.
Well, yeah.
Like he cannot do other than what he does.
Yeah.
I think Alize actually had the best point, which is kind of weird because I think you can boil down a lot of the story to what she said out in Clusia. It was like, we're all just fighting for the world we know and love. And some things are good for that world and some things are bad for that world. And if if Amarat was the world that we knew and loved, would we really be doing anything other than what Emmett Salk is doing? But it's not. It's mutually incompatible with what we're doing. Like the world we know and love is something different, and that's just how it has to be now.
But I mean, if everything rejoined, would we exist, or would we 14 of us inhabit one body, or like
we don't know.
Okay.
We have no idea what would happen.
And neither does like the Asians, right? They're just assuming and hoping, I'm guessing.
Yeah, we're all just taking the path that we think is the best for the world we know and love. And we might not even be right about that.
Yeah.
This idea of memory is like a good question though, because Emmett tells us in no like uncertain terms that our character has been rejoined. That we have effectively like 9 bits of soul in us. And we retained our memories through that process. You know, if we're like a legacy player after the calamity, we still have memory, and we've got an extra bit of soul.
It's definitely something I want like clarified, because it's the implication is really strong, but there's some wonky parts in it, and I can't close that assumption all the way. And I would really love Oda to just be like, yeah, or nah.
Yeah, me too. Because again, it's also implied that Ardbit was another bit of our soul, and that's rejoined to us as well, and that's how we were finally able to like maintain the light that was kind of threatening to take over us, just with that extra little bit that we needed. Then the question remains like, well, is everyone on the source rejoined several times, or is it only certain people? Like, are all souls today a shard of ancient souls? Have there been new souls created? We know that new souls can be created. We know that you can create anima. Is it just people with the echo that are ancient souls? We have no idea.
Yeah,
there's so many like open questions at the moment.
Even if like everyone is kind of latched on to different one-liners from the story to make assumptions, and they're not all compatible. Even if you go back to the calamity of the Amaratians, you have that most of the people are just gone in general because they were sacrificed to Zodiac, which means they're whole and gone and still in there. And then you have life that was the Amaratians that survived and considered themselves a steward of the world and wanted to bring those people back. But then you also have all of the new life that was created. You're told that like all sorts of smaller, less significant, different forms of life were created afterwards, after the world was poisoned. And that's what they were going to sacrifice in part to bring back Zodiac. And that could be some of the life that most of the people that we know are. They don't all have to be sundered souls. And we still need clarification that when a calamity happens, that the different parts of souls immediately find each other again and become one. We don't know that they're not just reborn here. So it's very up in the air for me. I don't know.
Yeah, right. Like we don't know that kind of soul rejoining is like an automatic process. Whether it's something that just has a chance of happening, whether it's something that like specific conditions have to be met, or specific like, you know, rituals need to be performed for that to happen. There seems like there probably is a connection between the rejoinings and pre-sundered souls in the echo in some way, but we just don't have enough information to like join the dots between it at the moment beyond just speculating.
All right, well then I won't speculate anymore. I had a couple of questions.
Speculate away.
I mean, this might sound stupid because you guys have a lot more access, or you have studied this a lot better than I have. But if we're talking about this and we go back, isn't like our ancestors, wouldn't they be the ones that have this soul of them? And does that soul just carry throughout their lineage? Or what is that?
So when you die, your anima goes back to the life stream, and eventually it finds its way into like new life. It's not necessarily new life that's like related to you in any way. It could happen like, you know, a couple of days after you die. It could happen years after you die. We don't really know. We just know that souls get recycled.
Okay, but
that's one of our biggest points of confusion, because usually we're told that when that happens, when you return to the life stream, it is a blender. It's just going to shear you apart into uncountable pieces, and other pieces are just going to haphazardly come together and be new life. And if souls are like surviving to be reincarnated, how many are we talking here? Because those two ideas are just not terribly compatible. So are they both true but for different people? Has there been a back end retcon we need to explore?
Or is our soul so strong it doesn't get
explanations?
Well, I mean, is our soul just so strong that it doesn't get blended up with everyone else and it stays whole and eventually
That seems to be a quality of the Echo, but we don't know.
It could be good. It could be. The thing that gives me pause is that there's no historical precedent for the assumption that after every calamity, some people were just better. That there were just like stronger people after every calamity. Like you'd think somebody would have noticed by now that like 10% of the population is times stronger than a normal person.
Right. Okay.
Or that all of society is 7 times stronger than it used to be. Like we don't have any clues.
Okay.
But if everyone was 7 times stronger, then we wouldn't notice, would we?
Yeah, maybe it just like all kind of scales up and we take a self-as normative point of view.
Yeah.
All right. Good dive there, guys. So is this kind of why we're special to Highland, you think, is maybe because our soul might be one of the original souls, or?
It's what Emmett seems to think.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'd love if we were like, I hate when people compare pop culture to other pop culture, and I'm about to do it. Oh, God damn it.
Right.
So is Final Fantasy 14 pop culture?
Yeah.
A little bit.
At this point.
Okay.
I'd love the idea if like we were that person who left the convocation and that we had something to do with the inspiring of Hydaelyn. And this is just her Hail Mary play. Like this is just her, I used to know this person, I implicitly trust this person. Let's just see what happens if we choose them. Like this is just her, throwing from the other side of the court because she knows and trusts us from long ago. Because like there was something similar in like spoilers, Horizon Zero Dawn. And I loved it in that. And I think it could work here too.
I got to go back to this because I completely looked over it. I don't know how. And we even talked about it in chat here. Like, we skipped over the part, maybe because it just didn't.
I was going to come back to it later in the QA if I needed to.
Yeah. Elidibus. What's up with Elidibus, and why does he have an inverted sigil?
His sigil is actually changed. Like that's the big thing I don't think people have noticed. If you go to the wiki and look up Elidibus's sigil, like the one for Zodiark and Elidibus, it's not the one we see in 14. They're different. So they've altered the sigil. The one that you see on the wiki is not the one that's in 14. It's been altered in such a way that there is no inverse. They're mirrored. You can flip it upside down. It's the same sigil.
Okay, so why is it flipped upside down?
Why are the other ones flipped upside down?
Yeah, why is it not like the others? Why is it changed?
Because they're named for the people that were opposite for them. So like the sigil of Zalera is for Zalera, but inverted I think implies that it's Emmett Selk instead, because that was the Scion of Light compared to the Scion of Darkness.
Okay.
But I'd have to double check that all of like it's a 100% thing and not just that like they've been inverting them because it looks cool.
I mean, that's like the main thing, right? It's just like referential.
Okay. So the sigil is just them, right? It's just they are, or sorry if I.
It's the symbol of the office. Like if you go through the dungeon, that's the academy. You can see them all on the floor.
Oh, okay. Okay. I just want to make sure we hit that a little bit. Sorry, we skipped over a little bit when we were talking about the Asians. I think we just kind of went into it flowed right into the next question I had on here. But we'll go back now. We'll go back. So we're a warrior of light, and we're a warrior of darkness.
Oh, we do. Yeah. Okay.
How is that a thing, right? Is it calling us a warrior of darkness is just like a title? Hey, we're gonna call you the warrior of darkness. It doesn't really mean anything.
It's just a cultural thing, right? Like, I mean, it
I was kind of let
doesn't
down.
really mean anything.
Mm.
We're more like a champion and arbiter of balance at this point. We're a champion of the status quo, the metaphysical status quo. Yeah, like it's literally just context sensitive, cultural titles.
Okay. Doesn't really mean too much. It just means that we are a hero in this shard. We're a hero of Warrior of Light, and this shard we're a hero of Warrior of Darkness. It doesn't give us any special abilities or powers or anything. We have the Echo, but that's
No, it's just a description
cultural
of
semantics.
Yeah, it's just a description of the work that we're doing.
Okay.
We're bringing darkness to Novrad, ergo we are the Warrior of Darkness.
So when we go the next step forward and we have an Oracle of Light and an Oracle of Darkness, what do these titles mean?
Well, the Oracle of Light is basically the inheritor of Minfilia's powers and roles and responsibilities as the word of the mother. It's like super fucking vague what's actually going on there. But Minfilia seems to imply that she was basically like an Ascian, that she was taking the bodies of little girls and using them to sort of try and keep the hope alive and fight against the Sin Eaters. But eventually she just kind of got guilty. She felt really guilty about it and was like, yeah, I'm actually just going to like backseat here and just kind of let them take control of their own destiny, which is what Reign's about, right?
And that's what we discussed last show before the expansion came out, basically, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And now we have a wrench in that works thanks to Eden. Thanks.
Right. I thought that was just interesting, like, because a lot of stuff's coming back from what we talked about. Glad we were right about some things.
The problem we've got is that in this name drop of the Oracle of the Darkness, people are like, oh, well, it must have some connection to Zodiac. We don't know whether or not that's the case. There's a couple of things that it could be, but we just don't have any information. It seems that they're from the Voids. They mention like in the dialogue during the fight in pretty unambiguous terms that they are from the Voids. And I think it's safe to imagine that they're trying to take possession of Eden to do something with its terraforming abilities, its ability to kind of reverse the polarity of ether to affect the Void in some way, maybe to reverse stuff that's happened there. Maybe she's another time traveler. Maybe she's coming from 10,000 years ago when the flood of darkness is just first happening and she thinks she can take this thing and take it back and stop it. We have no idea. Absolutely no idea.
For all we know, she's just another member of an Akal High's party.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. All we know is that it's got something to do with the Void.
Well, as soon as we started up Eden, she gets flown in by a Voidwalker and it's just kind of hanging there, limp, right? Or is she fighting too? I can't remember.
That's confusing. She's very confused and like disoriented.
Right.
After we defeat her. So we don't know whether she was in like full control of her faculties, whether she's the one piloting or whether she's the one being piloted. We just don't know.
Like if the Voidwalker was carrying the Oracle of Light and then controlling the Oracle or Oracle of Darkness and controlling her actions. Right?
Yeah,
like
we don't know. We don't know which way around it was going. We don't know whether she was piloting the Void Scent or whether the Void Scent was piloting her. We have no fucking idea. We just know that we powered up Eden, it put a blip on someone's radar, and a bunch of Void Scent came through to try and take it off our hands. That's it. That's all we know.
Okay. But I mean, in the sense of the title Oracle of Light and Oracle of Darkness, you can't have one person be both, like we are Warrior of Light.
I don't know.
Okay.
Don't know. You could.
It's definitely a hook. Like it's just supposed to keep you wondering until Eden 2.
Yeah, we're not going to be able to answer any of these questions until 5.2.
Oh, what's the purpose of Warrior of Darkness? No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, so that's all what the raid's about, is kind of what all that's happening with Eden and the Warriors. Oracle of Darkness coming into our lives now.
We just
I'm
know
mostly. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, we just know that the Eden story is somehow going to connect with the Void and stuff that's going on there. We don't know how, we don't know why. We do know that the Void is a big problem for the plot, insofar as the Ascians at least believe that it can't be rejoined. And maybe someone's found a way to fix it.
I think that's gonna, like, it's come up every couple of days. Is this a way to fix the Void? Is that a way to fix the Void? Maybe this is a way to fix the Void. So eventually they're gonna have to say either it can be, or it can't be, or it won't be. Because first I just hesitate to believe that the writers are going to sacrifice that big of a source of plot fuel. Like, they use the Void for so much. But people have mistaken a lot of what happened in 5.0 for being that the Void could be fixed, when really they were saying it could never be. But even that's an assumption, and maybe it can be.
Okay. That sounds
like,
clear as mud.
I hate it.
People like conflate the flood of light and the flood of darkness a lot, and they're like, oh, well, if the flood of light can be reversed and the flood of darkness can. But there's a significant difference between the two, is that in the empty, in like around Novrat, the ether is still there. Whereas in the Void, what happens, presumably through some kind of, over aspecting to astral, everything's just like blown out. Like, we've been told in no uncertain terms that there's basically like zero ether left there. So
I mean, then again, we thought that the flood of light would completely annihilate everything, right?
We don't even know if the key difference is that the flood of light never finished.
Yeah.
Okay.
That might be it, just because the flood of light didn't conclude.
Well, it didn't, of course. We would have to assume, because there's still stuff there in some way with Aether.
Whereas the flood of darkness did, at least as far as we understood. But now we're like, maybe it didn't. Maybe it didn't, and maybe the Ascians just didn't know. Maybe there is like a version of like a Novrant equivalent in the Void. I kind of been talking a lot lately about maybe there's some kind of like pandemonium fortress somewhere in the Void, where there's like a couple of people left trying to like fight back and fix it and survive. We don't know. Maybe
I tend to err on the side of, given what we know, what is the most outlandishly in the opposite direction thing that we could find out? So like, we see the empty, and the easy assumption is that's what the world looks like after a flood of light. So my brain immediately goes to, what is the thing that is most opposite? That's what the world looks like after a flood of light, that we can possibly say could be true based on what we know. And it's that's what the world looks like during the beginning of a flood of light. And that after the world had been completely consumed, it would, like a soul that's been spread too thin, lose its grip on itself as a dimension and then just cease to exist. That the flood was merely attacking the path of least resistance and then would keep attacking the rest of the world. We don't know. Like, we just need a few more specifics.
Hear that, Koji?
Please.
And so when we talk about the 13th and 13th Void, same thing, right? That's
all
right.
Most of the time, they use the word Void sometimes when they're not talking about the 13th at all, just to be confusing. Like, they do it on purpose.
Okay.
Like, sometimes the Void just means the abyss of the unknown.
Yeah. Sometimes it means the interdimensional rift. Like,
sometimes it means the interdimensional rift. Yeah.
The point is that like people diegetically don't have a really strong understanding of this concept of voids. I mean, even like the Ascians, like Emmett says, we made a useless void of the 13th. And it seems like that's probably the first conflation. It's like, shit, we turned it into a void. I guess it's the void now.
Okay.
Capital V void now, and like all the other voids are little v voids.
Okay.
It's a mess.
All right. So we were talking about people surviving this whole calamity and everything over there on the 13th, right?
Yeah, a few people did.
Who was that survived?
Unakalhai survived.
Okay.
And spoilers, so did Silva, who's one of Ardbit's companions.
Okay.
Who was I don't want to get too spoilery, but she's more than she seems. You guys got to do the rest of your role quests, but she's more than she seems.
All right.
Let's put it
and so we could kind of maybe assume a little bit too that they might want to do something to try to fix the 13th if there was a way to do it.
Ah, jeez. I don't think Unakalhai is ever going to leave that room in the Rising Stones. I think people have forgotten about him. I think they just like slide some bowls of like porridge under the door every couple of days, and that's it. They've had so many opportunities. Like okay, with the Oracle of Darkness, with Gaia, for instance, they're like sitting around trying to come up with the plot for New Eden. And they're like, so we need like this character from the Void who could be like a human survivor from the Void. Yeah, we're gonna need a new character for that. Like, there's no one that could possibly fit that. There's no one that could like deliver that for us. Is there? Nah. I mean, Graha had stuff to do with the Void, kind of, but like we already used him. So, is there anyone in any other side content? No. Nah.
Okay.
I wonder if they floated the idea to Nomura and he just shot it down. He's like, no, I need goth waifu.
Yeah.
And Unakalhai is not doing it for me. needs more like women and buckles.
Yeah, I need like longer legs to put lots of belts on.
All right. We kind of talked about the difference between light and darkness a bit here, so we don't have to go too much into it unless if there's you guys want to jump in. I know I have it on the outline, but
no, I mean light, umbral, darkness, astral. We had it backwards. That's what it is. Some people are under the misapprehension that like astral and umbral like reversed on the first. That's not the case. We were just wrong.
Okay.
Aeolus scholars are dumb.
And the other big thing to highlight is that they're not synonymous. Like astral is elemental and the effect of light, but it's not just light.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Or umbral. Sorry.
Yeah. I was like, wait a minute. Okay.
Fucking 5 years of president out the window. I hate everything. So yes.
All right. So the real interesting part, and I guess a lot of people who maybe casually go through the story see it a little bit, but maybe not as much, is that we visited the Crystal Tower. We dealt with Omega. We dealt with Alexander, and they all kind of came together here to help us with this story, right?
Yeah. You're talking about the twinning.
Yeah, the twinning.
And like the construction of the like time travel mechanics of Crystal Tower. Yeah, basically like so the future ironworks and Grahatir and Biggs the Third, they kind of went around collecting various records of our deeds and exploits. They studied Omega, they studied Alexander, Crystal Tower, like all these bits of side content that we did, and with the information that they gleaned, found a way to traverse and navigate the interdimensional rift through space and time. And it was just this really cool way of like wrapping it all up together neatly. There's not really that much more to it than that.
It was just kind of cool to see him do it. I just don't know.
Yeah, it's super hot.
They're gonna have to find other things going on in the world and maybe do it again later in a future expansion, right?
So the difficulty with like wrapping side content into MSQ content is that like some players will not have done that side content yet.
Sucks for them. I mean,
but well, here's like the really, really elegant thing they did here is that you don't have to have done it yet. You just have to have the intention of doing it at some point in the future. So like 200 years in the future, when people look at the deeds of the Warrior of Light, they're like, yeah, they did these things eventually. It doesn't matter when they did them. It doesn't matter what order they did them in. It matters that 200 years in the future, your character canonically will have done all contents.
Yeah, his solo trial, you know, just that's part of. He went back and he was bored, and he did it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So like the fact that a lot of players haven't done Alexander or haven't done Omega, like it doesn't matter for this plot line because of the way that time travel is handled. And I thought it was really cool. I thought it was really, really elegant. And it was the same with like Grahatir in general. Like you could not have met Grahatir, but he still knows who you are because at some point your character canonically will have done the Crystal Tower storyline and will have met him.
They have like multiple layers of contingencies. Like the first contingency is just the assumption that whatever patch it was in when it came out, that's what patch it happened in.
Mm-hmm.
So like the assumption is that the first Crystal Tower always happens between the first two coils.
Mm-hmm. But it doesn't actually matter.
Time, from the player experience, they also put in like text swap flags.
Mm-hmm.
So even if the assumption is that you did Crystal Tower between the two coils in 2.1, there's also, if your player hasn't experienced it, Graha will say, oh, one day we'll meet. There's actually a text flag for that.
Yeah.
So it's just multiple layers of dev team trying not to freak out as many people as they can avoid freaking out.
And it's extremely impressive.
It was really clever. It was really, really elegant way of handling it. Because there's going to be a lot of players, like new players in particular, that do Shadowbringers and don't really understand who Grahatir is, and then go back and do Crystal Tower, and they're like, "Oh shit!" And they're suddenly like in the position, like their character in Crystal Tower is almost in the position that Grahatir was in Shadowbringers for them, where like they'll have knowledge of his future and be seeing him and being like, I know who you are and I can't tell you yet, but like we're connected. And like, so I think it's really cool. I'm into it.
All right. I think this is a good time to start switching over to dedicated Twitch questions and everything else. So if you guys have questions, please put them in this document here. I'll try to go through them. You can ask them in the chat too, and I'll try to catch them if we can. And so I do have a little bit of a little ad I'm going to try to squeeze in right there between these two bits. And it's just about a minute long or so. So hang out for that, and we'll be back here in just a minute. And yeah, let's mute us up. Welcome back, guys. Sorry. It's a new one. I forgot to put PvP on there. Of course, we're going to have a PvP show on there. I know, I saw it. I did. Which most people would say, oh yeah, we're used to being forgotten about. But that's not the case, guys. Come on. It was an accident. But I did get a request to change it up, and I decided I'd change it up this week. So there you go, guys. And let's go ahead and get into these questions, and we will be doing the giveaway here in just a moment, but we're going to answer the first question here that just came in. The first question during the segment that has come in. Have you guys looked at the job icon for Neutral Sect? Any thoughts on it, or any heavy-handed references to the 12 and Astro abilities?
The job icon for what?
It said neutral sec. I guess it's just the job action icon, maybe.
Oh, the job icon, the action icon for
neutral.
The Astro ability?
Yeah.
No.
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 It's a little bit too deep.
Neutral sec, Astro.
Mm-hmm. You can do it.
No, I don't see it.
You don't see it anywhere? Link it.
I think I see. Is it the one with like they're like praying up and there's a sun on one side and a moon on the other side? Like, I
don't know for sure.
Neutral sect. Gamer escape wiki.
Ask a moderator for permission before posting links on Will.
Damn, you got wrecked, man.
Dun dun.
Give me a second. Let me give you.
Hey, I'm a moderator. No, I can see it now. Someone's like praying in the middle, and there's a sun and a moon. What about it?
I'm deferring to Ethys. He has a nicer voice, and people actually know who he is.
Oh, come on! Lots of people know who you are. There you go. So. Do you have any thoughts on it, or no? That's a pretty that's a question that maybe we just don't have an answer for yet.
I don't know. What's the question again about it? Like whether there's any like lore implications about it?
Basically, if it has any, do we have any thoughts on it, or is there any reference to the 12?
I don't see any reference to the 12.
Okay.
I don't know.
I see reference to 12 on the cards, but not this particular one. This particular icon. Like this particular icon just looks like a really artistic way to say that you're between them. That it's just two different ways of thinking about the sky, and you're neutral at the moment.
Oh, it shows what appears to be an Amrot person. Oh, no. It's just an Astro wearing a hat. That does not look like an Amratine to me. No, I think that's a stretch.
Okay.
It's definitely the Astro hat.
Interesting idea, but no, I don't see an Amratine.
Okay. Let me go ahead and start this giveaway, guys. And again, to give you a little bit of a background on the giveaway, it is going to be the Moogle speaker, which is pretty cool. It looks awesome. You can hook it up, and just keep it kind of in the corner to play your random, your Final Fantasy 14 soundtrack that will be coming out at some point in the US, I assume. Right? They have it in Japan, but not. But if you guys want it, the keyword, you will have to type in chat. I will be sending this to you. You have to live in the US, and I will need your address. Shit. And I will get with you after the show through Twitch communication. But the keyword is Soken. So you will just need to type in Soken into the chat. And then we'll get through a few more questions here. And we will do the giveaway after the questions.
I want it.
You know what? If you win it, I'll ship it to you.
Really?
Yeah, just for you, dude.
I am allowed to enter if I'm a guest?
Absolutely. You guys are not 100% affiliated with MogTalk. You're guest of it, so of course.
Well, Gamerscape never lets me do that.
Well, they suck. Anyways.
Wow.
There
you go.
We'll go into this here.
That fusion?
Damn, wrecked. Rolling the floor Dragoon. Yeah, rolling the floor host of a show. Okay. Let's go into the next question.
All right.
So we know and assume Zodiark's summoners were tempered. Would this extend to their sundered selves? Or rather, all the Asians we have seen tempered by Zodiark? What about the randoms? The uncentered 3 promoted? Can tempered people temper others without their respectful primals and direct involvement? I think Sylphs had something related to that.
Okay, so the first bit regarding whether like the sundered shards of a tempered soul are themselves tempered, you would have to think so, right? You'd have to imagine they would be.
Right.
I'm being pulled in 2 directions. I have no idea. I have 2 conflicting assumptions. One is that like temperature soul doesn't really matter. And like, why would they need to go and seek out people to promote if they were already like, yeah, I just want to go resurrect Zodiark?
Well, maybe they don't. Maybe they don't know. Maybe it's a case they need to like go to them and be like, so you have like this weird impulse to like summon like some kind of evil god, right? They're like, yeah, man. Yeah, I just like, it keeps me awake at night. I don't know why. And Elizabeth is like, all right, sit down. Take a seat.
Like maybe that's their out for why. Maybe that's their out for why Heidelin doesn't temper anybody, because once they're split, they all kind of have a fresh. Yeah, no, I have no idea. I can see both. I think both make total sense to me.
Okay.
But to answer one of the sub questions, you can indirectly temper people if you have something that was tainted by the primal. So if you had just like a jar of dirt from the last time a primal tempered someone that was just like there at the spot, you could dump that dirt over someone, and hopefully within a couple hours that would work. Because that's what they do that in the Sahagin quests. They like rope people up and they drag them to where Leviathan tempers people, and they just leave them in the dirt there. And within a few hours, hopefully it works. It sets in. Because it's the corrupting aura. It's like that psychic influence that gets into you and burns away who you are.
So if the Asians have a bit of like Amratine pocket sand.
They may.
Yeah, tempered bitch.
Oh, guys, remember, if you want to get in that giveaway, go ahead and type in soak in there, and we'll get you in. You have a pretty good chance of winning here. I mean, it's not terribly too many people with it. So.
Chat says the masks could be the tempering objects.
Yeah, that's an interesting idea.
Well, wouldn't guys be super tempered like then?
10 out of 10 on the rule of cool.
That would be, yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Although none of them have ever tried to like tie us down and put a mask on us.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, like La Habre and Nigayom, like they had a pretty solid opportunity to after we beat Bismarck in Heaven's Ward, just like walk over to us and like put a mask on our face.
Oh wait, Thancred wore La Habre's mask for a while.
Oh, maybe he's still tempered. No, please no.
Okay, here's another question here. I wonder what you guys think about the geography of Novarant in comparison to the source. I can see an argument that all the shards look quite like the first, as calamities and whatnot are able to and did bring to the further changes to the land in the source. What do you think they are mostly, or do you think they're mostly mirrors of the first?
Well, they were mirrors of the first 12,000 years ago, right? And there's been a bunch of events, particularly on the source, that have affected the geography. Mm-hmm. Like the last calamity had a massive impact on the geography of Eorzea. We're given an explanation for like the ruins of Amarot still being present on the first because the first hasn't had those calamities. So I think from that, we could probably assume that like the other shards look more like the first than they look like the source. Mm-hmm. That the shards probably look all like quite similar. Whereas comparing the shards to the source is like, they're kind of vaguely familiar, but different. Like geographically similar, but distinct. Mm. But again, we don't really know.
I'm in full agreement with that. Is that like when the source was sundered, 12,000 years is nothing geologically. Mm-hmm. Like they should be relatively, in our world. And at the same time, calamities are like everything geologically. So it really seems like the writers can just pick and pull whatever they want to and totally claim it's only been 12,000 years. It looks exactly the same. Or, it's been hit by 7 calamities. It's totally different.
Okay. Mm-hmm. This question, it pains me to ask it, but I'm going to ask it. What do you guys think about our favorite master crafter with a wig on the first Rowena, the final primal? They're pretending she's someone else. Will we fight her in 5.5?
Well,
go ahead.
You think that Moen is literally Rowena? And that I like the idea. I like the idea that Geralt. What's the name of Novranti and Geralt again? It's I can't remember. Anyway, it is literally just Geralt with a wig on.
Oh yeah. I can't remember his name either.
Grenell?
Yeah,
Grenell. Yeah. So he's living at the bottom of like the deepest trench in the ocean that he could find. I my head canon is that is Geralt, and that he's fled to Novrant to run away from Rowena.
You know, it's
hidden in the deepest trench of the ocean that he can find, and that Rowena's found a way to like follow him and pretend that she's someone else as well. They're different. They're different characters. It's like a really kind of like tongue-in-cheek, silly, Neo Hildebrandian kind of reference.
Yeah, but like the easy answer for me is that it's just Yoshida being silly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But in the meantime, until I'm proven wrong, I'm going to be claiming that Geralt and Grenalt are both shards of Biragom. And that Moen and Rowena are both shards of Naldal. And I will see you all in 6.0.
Fair enough.
You know, I gotta say, one of the most interesting.
It's definitely wrong.
One of the most interesting things that I saw going into the end of the expansion is when we go into the ocean and we literally blow up the ocean into a giant air bubble, killing all the, I'm assuming, fish and creatures and wildlife, and destroying the entire environment. And we just, it's okay. Like, all right.
Sure.
No big deal. I was hoping there'd be something else said besides just, you kind of disturbed what we were doing by the Sahagin, and that was it. Right?
Wait, what's this about the Sahagin?
They kind of mildly mentioned, hey, you kind of messed things up a little bit for it throughout the story.
Oh,
right?
the Ondo?
Yeah.
You mean...
Oh, sorry, the Otto. Yeah.
They're fine.
Okay.
They're fine. They had a problem that like their queen was giving birth and she didn't have enough water to do it with, so we went and like consulted with someone in Kalusia being like, how do you give birth? She's like, build a rope. And we're like, all right, okay. So we made a rope for the Ondo queen, and then she managed to give birth properly. And now they're like, all right, well, that's the only thing we were really worried about. The bubble's going to pop eventually. The water's going to return. Eventually Mount Golg is going to fall again. But that's not our problem, because that'll be outside of the time bubble.
The great American way to think about it.
Yeah.
All right.
That'll collapse next year.
Future generations. Don't worry about it.
So I am going to go ahead and do the giveaway drawing, guys. Let's go ahead and see who wins. All right. It was not anyone on the show, so it's not completely rigged. It's Digma_2. So if you're in chat, if you're in chat, congratulations. Say you're in chat here, and then I'll get with you after the show through Twitch chat, just so we can go ahead and get into particulars of how to get that Moogle speaker to you. Okay, I see him over there. So that's it, guys. Thank you for that participating in the giveaway. That's a pretty awesome little speaker. And again, after these next couple of questions, we'll get into it. I think I might just do one more here. And this is kind of a good question to kind of end everything off on, even too. After going through Shadowbringers, what's the biggest lore question you would want to ask to a developer?
Oh my god. Only one?
Only one. And then you could tell it Moose your other one, and he'll ask it for you.
I'm sure Moose has got plenty.
Yeah, it's I actually keep a document between interviews.
Yeah, I've got a list of questions that I really want to ask.
But we're after FadFest, and we're in that room, and you only get to ask one question.
And they'll answer it. I don't have to like be careful to ask a question that they'd be allowed to answer.
No, they'll absolutely answer it.
All right, just like what the hell caused that first calamity, star scourge, whatever you want to call it in Amarok? Like what actually happened back then at that time?
Okay.
That's what I want to know.
I think that's a something everybody's thinking about right now too, is that insane scene that we're dragged into on the last dungeon, which jaw-dropping best dungeon they've created in the game so far. No?
Twinning.
Twinning?
Twinning's my favorite.
I like it, but at the same time, it's not the same thing as seeing a planet in the background of meteors falling down on it. So, all right, Moose, what's your big question?
All right, if it's from the angle of it can be anything I want and they have to answer, I almost don't even want to ask like a specific lore piece of trivia because we're probably gonna get there, right? So. Okay. I think the number one question I would want to force them to tell me today is if I spent the rest of this game doing what I've done so far and just sticking up for Heidelin and that she's flawed crystal mom and she loves us and hashtag Team Heidelin, am I going to look like an idiot in years? Like, are you going to make me look bad? Should I stop now? Should I stop now and let people forget by the time they would usually teabag me? Like, that's really what it comes down to right now.
Hey, I'm 100% Team Heidelin as well. I got your back. I'll take the fall. We go together.
We just have to make sure Fusion's on board because we've never all three been wrong. Like, if we all agree, it's true.
That's a good point, actually. Yeah. One of us has always been on the right track.
Okay. All right, so we can kind of wrap things up here. I mean, it's been about 2 hours, and we've covered a lot of ground. I'm sure Ethys wants to go back to sleep, right?
I don't know if I should, but I do very much want to, yes.
Okay. To close up here, Ethys, I do want to give the floor over to you for any last thoughts you might have and any shout outs that you'd like to do in your tired state.
Geez, okay. Well, I guess check out my YouTube. We're doing a couple of videos at the moment covering like the big lore bombs for Shadowbringers, which will tie into this story a little bit. I'm specifically focusing on like stuff that we thought we knew before Shadowbringers and stuff that we'd been like speculating on for years and years in previous videos, compared to like what we actually know is the case now and what questions we have moving forward and what we can sort of speculate on moving forward, just to kind of like clear the air a little bit. And from there, we'll start going into lots of like, lore tours and all the kind of classic content that you guys enjoy. So check those out. Follow me on Twitch. I stream full time, like, pretty much every day. Yeah, other places everywhere, Instagram, Twitter, all that. Frosty, thank you so much. I'm really excited to do this Aussie show. Frosty and I having a chat about doing a show about like the Australian community and like where we're at and what that's all about. And that should be a really interesting one and have some really cool guests. So yeah.
I think it's actually, I mean, just starting to think about it, it's really interesting to see how Square Enix and everything, how everything works over there in Australia versus the rest of the world, right? We don't really think about that. And you guys have a whole bunch of issues you have to deal with in order to be part of the gaming world that Final Fantasy XIV is definitely part of.
Yeah. So other than that, just like, thank you very much for having me on the show again. Thank you, Moose, for being the standard for lore conversations in 14 and making sure that we're all being really careful to...
Just thank you for all the people you bring to the table and giving me a good sounding board.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Yeah. All right, Moose. Now it's your turn here. Shout outs and any last words you'd like to say.
Oh man, in terms of stuff to plug, I feel like the thing I should be plugging is that like my real life is really busy and I'm really sorry I'm not putting out much official content, but bother me through literally any medium. Track me down on Twitter, on Discord, on Gamerscape. Ask me questions, bother me. I will answer you. In the meantime, visit Gamerscape, visit the forums, follow Ethys.
Very good, very good. And I do want to do a quick mention here. I made fun of Fusion earlier, but dude's awesome. He also does a podcast here before my show even airs, like about an hour or so before mine airs. You guys should definitely check out. He's been doing it weekly. I don't know if Fusion maybe can tell us. Oh, Jesus, why do we have to do that in chat? Like right as I'm like talking about stuff. I'm glad my Twitch thing doesn't fix that, and my pop-out's not working, so I can't even... Thank you, dude. Anyways, check his Perfect Time for Fusion, I guess, talking about him and promoting him. If you guys want to watch him, he's at Gamerscape Twitch here. But that being said, you guys all coming to the show and watching today has been absolutely amazing. There's been a lot of support from MogTalk recently, and it means a lot to me. We will have a show next week based on the world race. I have absolutely no clue who will be on the show next week. It depends on the teams that do well and place well and the teams that want to be on the show. But it is going to be completely around the world race, which we'll be seeing here probably in about 3 or 4 days. So tune in for that. If you want to follow that, you can follow me on Twitter too, Frosty TV Stream. That's where I'll be posting a lot of the information that I find, and I'll have a forum up so you guys can follow the ranking board and everything. Hopefully post it tomorrow so everybody can see it, where we'll be starting from. The other parts here is I do want to definitely thank Ethys and Moose for both coming on the show just a month after bringing you on.
Thanks for having me, though.
Yeah.
Just a month?
It's been just a month ago. Yeah, it's very recent.
Anytime, dude.
It means a lot. You guys are definitely my source for lore and story and everything else, and help maybe display my ignorance a little bit, but hopefully cure it as well as we go through these shows. It means a lot. I do want to do a personal thanks to Carrara for being my emotional support in the background, Andre Kane for allowing me to do the intro and closing music with his song that he remixed for Final Fantasy 7, or well, it's more of a battle theme guitar version of it. And then Blizana for the artwork that we have on the show. Everyone in the Final Fantasy 14 community. And we'll be doing credits here, and stick around for our raid. Give us just maybe a couple of minutes on that. And yeah. See you guys next week. Be good, keep cool, stay frosty, and love each other.
Oh, you did it! He said the thing!
Yeah. All right. Bye, guys. Everybody say bye. Say bye.
Bye.
Okay. We're muted now. Okay, we did it. So we gotta do a raid here. Who are we raiding? We're muted. Oh wait, no, I'm not muted. Ah!